Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mentor Talk, the unique destination for insightful conversations with experienced professionals. I'm your host, Suzette, so the CEO of Sales Pro for you, and as usual, more about me during this episode. So in this podcast, we will delve deep into the minds of accomplished experts who share their expertise and insights. So as you know, each interview is a real treasure trove of practical advice, personal anecdotes, and your doorway to sustainable business success. Yes, and whether you are a startup or an SME or also an enterprise, and you are looking for professional support, maybe in sales, marketing, business development, or maybe also in investing, this podcast show is your doorway to success or your go-to resource. So without further delay, let's start into today's enlightening conversation with Björn Schäfer. Hello, Björn. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm fine.
Great. So it took us a while to meet, but finally we are together in this room. And before we start our discussion and speak about, let's say, different kind of go-to-market strategies, for example, I would like to give a very short summary about your background. So, and please correct me if I am wrong. So I believe I would like, I'm always making people younger than they are. So I guess this is a compliment. So I guess you have over 20 years of experience as a founder, revenue leader, advisor, and angel investor. And in the past decade alone, you have assisted more than 100 B2B startups in the software as a service sector, so SaaS. And you have developed and successfully validated your own go-to market strategy, which is very interesting. And furthermore, you host your own podcast, so you're a real expert, which is named the SaaS Symphony. And you have recently completed your first book, introducing the Flywheel, a very interesting tool that leverages customer satisfaction to drive referrals and boost sales. And I guess the book is available from August this year. I hope everything is correct. So welcome, Björn.
It's pretty fair and sound. No, it's all correct. So nothing to add at that stage.
Okay, great. Maybe you can share a bit about your experience in detail. I mean, how you made it so far and how you learned so much, how you gained your experience and how it is to work with startups, because that's very interesting. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I founded my first company myself in 2009. It was back to B2C back then. Stayed in the industry. So what I love about all the chaos and all the frustration, especially before reaching product market fit, you have so much impact. So it's so fast and so, for me, it's meaningful because you can do so many things and get quite quickly, even dealing with B2B and B2B sales, quite quickly you get feedback. So I'm fascinated still within the scene. I love to either to invest and or to support founders. So I would say I have my dream job. For the time being, nothing to complain about.
That's wonderful. I mean, I can imagine, the time when I was working as an employee and I was switching jobs because, I mean, I was quite young and I was not really mature about what I should do, right? What should be the next chapter. And I can completely, understand and share your feelings about you're now, at your, let's say, final destination and you can develop yourself and help, startups to grow.
Not sure about the final destination, though. Hopefully, I still have some time left, but you never know. But for the time being, I would say I have the perfect sweet spot.
It's great. So as I mentioned, so you are kind of a hybrid person because you are a founder, revenue leader, advisor, and angel investor. Maybe you can speak a bit about, how this developed in the past. So.
Yeah, so basically, I had the great luxury to support urban sports in Germany and then later in 5 different European companies to actually perform hyper growth. So when I joined the company, the 2 founders asked me basically, we have we have a very strong B2C brand. It's really nice progressing, and we have this kind of small little plant which is pretty promising. It's called B2B and selling to companies. And yeah, I had the great honor to join that company. And fast forward, what we did is we merged with a different company and then another company, and out of a sudden we had 50% revenue share coming from B2B. And I and my team, we basically built up nearly everything from scratch, scaled it, and then internationalized. So that was super cool. And then at some point, I moved back to Switzerland, and I decided, okay, what's next? So classic option would be kind of to join another, either a startup, scale up, quite challenging to combine with a young family. Just investing, not my cup of tea. So I'm still kind of an entrepreneur and practitioner at heart. And then I started doing a little bit interim, fractional, and over the last 3 years, I would say I've invented my own business model. It's combining. So one part is I classically invest as a business angel in B2B SaaS companies, pre-seed or seed rounds, together with other business angels within my network and or with venture capitalists. And the other thing is that I'm supporting primarily first-time founders and founding teams taking the next step of acceleration from product market fit, and potentially we dive into this, to a more professional and scalable setup towards the Series A funding. And that's super cool and fun, and worked also on a very special kind of business model, just a small retainer covering my fixed expenses and allowing me to buy some toys for my daughter. And the rest is success fee based on either we reach and win together in terms of business plan and or next funding round.
Wow, really cool. So thank you for your experience in a nutshell in the last decades, what you did. I would like to focus a bit, or first, on your chapter supporting urban sports, because you mentioned at the beginning it was B2C, and then you launched it. I don't know if launch is the correct word, but then you started focusing on B2B business. So what was the main challenge? You know, I mean, because it's different if you speak B2B or B2C, so it's a complete different approach.
Yeah, so we had some traction. So basically, it was very nice because B2C was pushing. So we had the B2C. So we were selling to, of course, individuals, but also employees, and they were pushing for, hey, please, can you support, dear boss, dear chef, can you support this service? And it was in an age where these kind of employer benefits and all these additional services next to your salary, and in particular with low salaries in startups and young companies, that's where the movement started. So we were at the right time and the right place, I would say, that we got a very, very bottom-up acceleration in demand, and a lot of employees were actually asking their superiors whether there is a chance either to get it fully paid or at least subsidized. And this is where we really got into the market, doubled down on employer branding, supporting employers who are really serious about a great overall offering. And the rest, it took quite nicely. When I left, we had more than 20 million revenue. So a decent success, I would say.
Absolutely. Very interesting. So congratulations on this. So this means you also developed a purely new go-to-the-market strategy, right? Because you changed, let's say, the customer from companies to, or from customers from B2C to B2B. So this is what you did, right? So you invented something new.
Basically, we defined together as a team, we defined a go-to-market strategy, as you say, go-to-market strategy for our B2B. And it was basically, a business to employee. So we were selling to companies, but either the parts of the revenue, either way, the majority of the the revenue, not the majority, but a significant part was coming from the employees, either that they paid a small fee or some parts of the membership and some parts were paid by the companies. But basically we had two revenue streams, A coming from the company and B coming from the employees.
Very interesting. So the first, let's say, low-hanging fruit have been the employee benefit programs, right? So this was your starting point.
No, yeah, we had some traction, but so to dive a little bit into this, yes and no. So we got some traction, but they weren't our best target clients, let's call it that way, because who is looking for additional discount is someone who has already been in touch and already has been interested in the product. So if you just give extra discount on it, it's a bad deal. So of course it's a nice deal in terms of growth, but when you look at the productivity and gross margin, it's not the best deal. The other thing is what we learned. You're basically, yes, you're selling to employees, but you do not sell to companies. And at the very end, what we care much more about is how sticky is the product becoming within the company. And therefore, employer benefits, platform, etc. It's more B2C, and I had very close discussions with my colleagues from the B2C department because it's kind of melting in that regard. But I was focusing on selling directly to companies, and then make a great offering for how can they boost their employer branding, how can they reduce turnover, how can they create unique moments and experiences, how can they foster communication across departments. So there are lots of benefit just purely on the company side and less on the user side.
Thank you so much for answering this question in such a detail. So now I understood completely what you just explained. I would like to use the chance to speak a bit more about the Flywheel. I'm not quite sure if everyone is familiar with this. It's a super interesting, let's say, tool. But Björn, you are the expert. You are publishing a book, so maybe you could be so kind and explain about what is the Flywheel and why everyone should know about this.
So the Flywheel itself as a concept is something which is, if you do it right, you have this kind of self-acceleration movement. And that's why I love this Flywheel. So you start spinning, and then if you're combining all the right components, it's spinning faster and faster and faster. And what I like about this is that it's, especially when it comes to go-to-market, there is, for me, it's not a linear process. So let's take a small step back. So when you look at traditional sales, everyone was caring just about the funnel until the first initial close. So, and still some, just to be a little bit cheeky on that, still some employees, they couldn't care less what's happening after the contract signature. So when we talk about software as a service, you see, probably you're familiar with the bow tie, great stuff, but it's still a linear process because yeah, you have some errors and of course, but what a lot of people didn't get, and I didn't get myself for a long time, is if you do customer success right, it circles back to marketing and sales, double down on that customer segment and these customer segments and these use cases, which have been proven successful already. And therefore you get this kind of flywheel. And out of this very kind of easy to grasp concept, I thought, okay, being very, very naive as a spoiler, I thought, okay, it's not that complicated to write a book about it. I learned it the hard way that writing a book, hopefully it's readable and got some good feedback on that, but it was a really hard time to make it happen. So my kind of go-to-market flywheel consists out of 4 elements, and the first one is about market segmentation, because what a lot of people underestimate, and we've talked about TAM and SOM and SUM and some beachheads. There is, and it often also for me, it sounded very theoretical. So, but it's really important to to have at least a structured approach and say, okay, what kind of components should be there, still bearing in mind my current product, because a tech product, a software product is kind of not super flexible, like for example, an agency business. So you really have to have 1, 2, 3 hypotheses in where should I enter with the current product, giving kind of 6 to 24 months time. Because if you do not build up any kind of traction, either you're running out of money and or you have no fancy story to tell to investors. So this is the first part in saying what kind of segments, where do we have basically a win to ride? And then it comes.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you. So yeah, sorry. So one question in between about the first section. Yeah, you said you have 4 sections about the wheel. So quickly, the market segmentation, is this how to do a market segmentation properly, right? So is it the same for a service as well as for a product, or is there a difference?
Very good question. So I would say, so the book is primarily based on B2B software, and we'll come to this later. But I would say the first part can be used for any kind of businesses, because at the very end, it's basically the same. For B2B, you always have to do the same things to dive into jobs to be done. So what is the current status quo? What are the pains and challenges? How can we solve this? What is the new capability, how to solve it? So you could answer that with services or with software. So, and also navigating around different markets and segments, I would say, yeah, it's the business model comes later in diving into more details.
Okay, so got you. Let's jump to the next part of the wheel.
Okay, good. So once you have, so there are multiple levels within this market segmentation, but then of course it comes to ideal customer profile. So what are the companies I would like to work with? How does my buying center or decision-making unit look like? So, and if you have this clear in terms of this is my market, these are my use cases, this is kind of where we really have a right to win, then you have multiple options to create demand. And I care less about lead gen, because lead gen, just for the sake of it has no value. Okay, I might got some attention of marketeers, but at the very end, I care about pipeline creation, whatever that means. So that's the second component. How do I measure? How do I build? What kind of channels should I use? Bearing in mind that you shouldn't do everything at the same time. So dealing with different phases in early stage startups.
Okay, so this means just one thing. This means it's kind of you said measuring. So it's statistics, right? So to check the performance, right? How do I check my performance? Is this the second section?
No. So if you deal with early stage startups, I think there is no such a thing as statistics. Okay. Because every mathematician would say you do not have statistical proof. So what you should do, of course, you should measure, but for example, for B2B, and I focused on marketing assisted and sales led software. So really ticket sizes 5,000 and more. Basically, you have 3 different options how to penetrate the market. So either it's marketing led, whether it's content led or paid. It's sales led, and of course, there are account-based marketing supporting motions, and you have product led with a strong support of the community, etc. So basically, to enter a new market, you have to choose to double down on or to get at least one motion right. And there, the book shows so how to navigate through. So it depends on your product, it depends on the maturity of your company. There are some other criteria to at least have a short list of channels and acquisition strategies to build up this demand.
Got you. Okay, so section 2 is pipeline, measuring success, what you just mentioned. Okay, what is the third section?
It's pipeline management and conversion. So dealing with B2B, it already started in terms of lead gen and demand gen, but of course then it all comes to what kind of sales methodology are you introducing? What kind of framework are you using? What KPIs do you look? How is for efficient growth? How is CAC payback, for example, playing into it? to what kind of conversions should you look, and sales velocity is handled in detail, because this is until the first initial sales is done, and especially if, dealing with, for example, in Germany with German Mittelstand, I call it either it's land and expand, or you have kind of a two-step sales approach that you lower your initial ACV, so annual contract value, and then have a clear path to, so once the product is getting sticky after 3 to 6 months, then you have the additional expansion deal. So there are some strategies in close the initial sales, but also prepare the fourth part is what is happening with the customer post-sales.
Got you. And what is the final, so the fourth section of the wheel?
So that's kind of post-sales, but it's more in the bigger picture. It's called segment penetration, because the hypothesis you're building up in the section number one is basically fueled by the success and the repeatable and comparable case studies coming from my existing customer base. And I recently had a talk with another expert. So when you look at a lot of go-to-market sales organization, it's still kind of a very rigid, either it's rigid and or it's chaotic. But what I try to build up is a very agile framework dealing with multiple sub-segments within my market, that you really have small teams dealing with, for example, vertical 1 and vertical 2, or use case 1 and 2, and have this kind of combined motion between marketing, sales, customer success, and product.
Thank you so much, Björn. I'm very, very delighted about, talking with you about this interesting topic. So for me, the Flywheel is a very nice tool, very interesting. And I'm so thankful that I had a chance now to learn a bit more. Of course, I recommended your book. Absolutely. I also have to get it to learn more about this topic, especially post-sales. And last question, because, we, of course, I don't want to spoil so much about the content of your book. It makes no sense. People have to buy the book, of course. So I would like to touch with you the topic of investment. So in investing from an, let's say, angel investor point of view, because as you know, I mean, you did this the last decade. You worked together with hundreds of startups, right, to help them to grow. So what kind of advice would you give to startups which are interested in, let's say, pre-seeds investments, or any kind of, let's say, presentation preparation to speak with a potential investor, how to reach the best investor? What should I do as a startup to get ready to find somebody who likes my idea and wants to support me?
Well, it's a very good and very broad question. So maybe I'm a big fan of the power of 3, because there's a good chance that people will remember that. So I think the first question is, and it sounds boring, but do I really need investors, and or is this an investor's case? So because you won't change the basic framework and the basic rationale, why should I invest? Potentially business angels are different, but if you are aiming for a VC-backed case, it's very straightforward. So they are thinking in multiples, they are thinking in big markets. So you really have to justify, is that market big enough? So that's the brutal reality in that regard. The other thing is, nothing is more sexy than traction and revenue. So of course, there are some stellar projects out there, so OpenAI and others. But if we talk about kind of more classic B2B SaaS things, nothing is more sexy in terms of I have a clear proof of at least some use case, some revenue. So normally I start investing in 10K MR. So I would like to see the initial traction. I would like to see some pipeline, and I would like to see, okay, this is the direction they are heading to. And the third advice is, it's kind of like in any other business relationship. I think, no, I'm not thinking that's how I do it. I only work with people I like. And of course, they are competent, but I start with, do I like that person? Are they trustworthy? Do I have a good gut feeling? And then I dive into more rational things. But it starts with me, work with nice people. You can, or have a good chance that you have a reliable, lasting relationship with.
That's great. So I absolutely would underline the last, let's say, topic you touched with, the power of three. So this kindness thing, right? So be nice, work with people who are trustworthy, who share the same vision as you, 100%. So would you mind if you could just summarize the power of three, like in short bullet words, so I have a better understanding if I think about the power of three, what I should do?
Yeah, so first think about carefully, is it now the right timing to reach out for kind of investors, and then decide what kind of investors is it really attracting to. So it makes a strong difference whether you just go for angel and or really the VC case. Second one is, nothing is more, when we're dealing with B2B and software, nothing is more sexy than attraction and revenue. And the third one is work with nice people, and then of course dive into their level of expertise.
Thank you so much, Björn. Nothing to add. And I would like to wrap up our enlightening episode of the day, if it's okay for you.
Please.
So thank you so much, Björn Schäfer. It was a pleasure talking to you. For the community, as usual, remember, success is a journey, and having the guidance and the wisdom of an experienced professional like Björn makes all the difference. And if you have any feedback, or if you would like to support the show like an expert, like Björn is one, just email me to mentor@salesproforyou.com. Thank you so much, Björn. It was a pleasure talking to you. I learned about the flywheel and about the 3 Ps to power, something like this. And yeah, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
You too. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.